Hey, what's up, everybody? Here is the promised video going over the gem setup in the Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite video. I know I promised it a couple days ago, but I was actually a little unsure if there was demand for it or if there was if I really needed to clarify, but there have been enough questions since I posted the guide to warrant a follow-up, so we're just doing this. I'm going to try to go over this pretty quickly. The video will just be split into two different parts. The Pre-Mageblood setup, we're going to go over my PoE because I don't have that setup anymore in-game. And then in-game, my final setup. All right, let's just get right into it. Let's start off with the setup that I have here. So this is my, roughly 60 Exalt setup. This cost me 60x to do a month ago. With the changing prices of stuff, the demand of stuff, putting this together right now will cost a lot more. So this is just pre-Mageblood. Don't, pretend like there's no price. Let's just start off with the Cyclone Forbidden Rite setup right here, our 6th link in our body armor. I am using Divergent Cyclone. The thing is, Cyclone makes you move slower by default. Divergent for quality makes it go faster. It offsets that a little bit, and then later on when we have Ashes of the Stars, it offsets the downside quite a bit. Phantasmal isn't bad. It's pretty good for avoiding stun if you want to just use that for not worrying about getting stunned. But Divergent's the best in my opinion. Anomalous, you don't want to knock back enemies. Next up in the order of operations here is increased critical strikes. You can put this build together without increased critical strikes, but the comfort that it gives you by just getting that base critical strike chance up is so nice for a lot of flexibility in the rest of your gear. Anomalous we see here gives us critical strike multiplier. That's really, really good for increased damage on our build. I wouldn't use Divergent. We're already generating power charges. So just more critical strike chance for the default in addition to that. Awaken Cast on Crit. Pre-Mageblood, we're going to use Skin of the Lords. So we only need, I think we only need level 4 Awaken Cast on Crit, actually. Post-Mageblood, you need level 6 or an Abyss Jewel that has cooldown recovery rate on it to hit that 52% breakpoint, but we can get away with a low-level Awaken Cast on Crit here. In addition to that, increased critical damage is just really nice if you're doing 3 green, 3 blue. This is kind of just like best in slot at the moment. So this is just what I was using, but you'll see if you click on this, right, if you have your main skill selected at Forbidden Rite, Awaken Void Manipulation could actually sub in here to the point where I could do 4 green and 2 blue, right? That's the thing about the Skin of the Lords here is there is a lot of flexibility with the colors. You can do 3 green, 3 blue, 4 green, 2 blue. You can do 3 green, 2 blue, 1 red. There's a lot of flexibility to the point, right, where just kind of click on these, do the drop downs. The one thing to watch out for is, right, is we know that Forbidden Rite, 5 projectiles on the single target, default is 1+1. We get the Helm enchant, and then we want to use Volley for the +2, right? And that's how we get the 5 projectiles on our main target. That's why we're using Volley right here. So increased critical damage, we'll see that that is one of the best. We'll see that a level 5 to Awaken Void Manipulation is pretty good as well. That's competitive, but they're pretty similar. And then last up, we used Volley. As I just explained, we want to have 5 projectiles on the main target. 1+1 is the default on Forbidden Rite, so we just need +3. Helm enchant, and then Volley for 2 more. The reason in the Post-Mageblood setup we switch out of Volley is we are able to sustain +2 proj on our Dying Sun. That gives us 5 by default right there, and then we can swap out Volley for something else that gives us a lot more damage. And then the big one here is Forbidden Rite. A lot of people are paying a lot for Anomalous Forbidden Rite. So Anomalous here gives us 2 extra projectiles, goes up to 5 with Ashes of the Stars. Really good for those additional targets, right? Really helps clearing out. Doesn't do anything for the single target because we can only hit 5 proj on the single target. And, if you want a little bit more comfort while you're doing single target or smaller packs of monsters, regular Forbidden Rite is actually good enough. We'll actually have 50% projectile speed with Ashes of the Stars, and those little kitty cats are going to go super, super fast, and the clear might be a little bit more comfortable, actually. So there's nothing wrong with using default. Totally fine. You don't need Anomalous. Divergent's okay. I think that's an okay alternative to Anomalous if you can't get it, but I imagine that it probably just costs a little bit. It'll help clear a little bit, but again, it's really not going to make a difference for your single target. In my shield, I am using Mark on Hit with Assassin's Mark. You saw that I was using the default one, which gives us power charge on hit, which is really nice early on when we're mapping if we don't have other power charge generation right away. Later on, when we have Ashes of the Stars and power charges from power charge on crit in the body armor, we do want to swap to Anomalous here, which makes monsters take 12% increased damage with Ashes of the Stars. That's the big swap over later on. I recommend default Assassin's Mark early. Don't use Anomalous until you get Ashes. Mark on Hit, you can see that if I go to Divergent, it gets a little bit more DPS, but it's not a lot. So it's very low value. You know, if you want to really min-max your damage, you can buy Divergent for a little bit more, but no big deal. And then Withering Step, I do strongly recommend Anomalous here. It inflicts more Withered debuffs the first time the enemy enters the area. Really nice quality of life there. And then with Ashes of the Stars, that's 5 additional. And we actually get, I believe, 12 Withered debuffs immediately. With Ashes and Anomalous Withering, we will just always have 15 Wither stacks. We can just rely on that, you know, for that max damage. So that's the recommendation there. For the Aura setup in the Pre-Mageblood, I really recommend as soon as you can get Anomalous Determination. It's just way too good for avoiding stuns. This 5% goes up to 12% once you get Ashes of the Stars. Again, you know, we're preparing for that. Feel free to use default initially, but then I do strongly recommend going for Anomalous later. This will allow you to have full stun avoidance with just the Flask and Anomalous Determination and nothing else. Purity of Ice here, there's really no value to getting any of the alternatives, so no big deal. You just want level 21 Purity of Ice. We want to get that as high level as possible so we can hit that 90 all res from the Melting on the Flesh setup. Discipline is like, okay, if you really want Anomalous, you know, this will go up to 12% increased damage while on full energy shield. Pretty good. I would much rather have a level 21 Vol Discipline or even a level 20 Vol Discipline, which is actually what I have in my Post-Mageblood setup right now. It's just too good to have that Vol Discipline if you're walking over degens, anything like that. It's a really, really good, just like, oh shit button, right? Heal your character. So with Molten Shell, I'm just using default. It's nice to have it last extra long. Just more uptime, more comfort. It's going to be there when you need it. If you really want to, you can use Anomalous. It'll take an additional damage as a percentage of your armor, which is really good. This will allow you to tank way, way more. I am considering going to this later, but I just haven't hit any of my corrupts because I really, really need Vol Molten Shell. In addition to Vol Discipline, it's just too good as a no shit button. Cast some damage taken, just use the regular, no big deal there. Defiance Banner, I'm currently using the regular one. Anomalous would be better. An additional 10% increased armor and evasion rating. I think it costs like 8 to 10x last time I looked. And then, of course, with Ashes, that'll go to a 25% increase. So it is really, really good, but, you know, it costs a good amount. Flame Dash, I really like the default, actually. Increased cooldown recovery rate just makes it more often. It's going to be up for you to get around. If you want Anomalous, it's kind of funny. With Ashes of the Stars, you can go like basically a full screen. Kind of fun. And then Divergent does nothing for a build. People keep asking about this Arcane Surge here. That Arcane Surge is only to simulate Arcane Heroism here. You can see that the Arcane Surge is red text. Red text in Path of Building means that it is not processed. It is not it doesn't know that we have Arcane Surge. So I am just putting a fake Arcane Surge here. And then because we have Arcane Surge from the boots, then we get the Arcane Heroism 30% increase effect. And, you know, if we got other increased effects, it would then process it properly. Precision, I just have a regular level 1 precision here. This is just for the Watcher's Eye Flash Charge Precision mod. If you don't have that, you don't need precision whatsoever. Purifying Flame, you need Divergent. Divergent is the reason why we're using Purifying Flame. Consecrated Ground makes monsters take increased damage. This will go to 12% when we get Ashes of the Stars. Obviously, really, really good. I'm also keeping these low level, so they cost less mana because they are in a cast 1 damage taken setup. I'm also using regular Ball Lightning. This is just to also work with the Watcher's Eye energy shield gain on hit. Ball Lightning will hit many, many monsters at the same time, and just having more hits going out there, more ES gain on hit, really helps us sustain on cast 1 damage taken here. I really liked cast 1 damage taken in the Pre-Mageblood setup. I know we're going to talk about Vengeance a little bit later. I found the Vengeance uptime reliability pre-Ashes of the Stars was really bad. And the Pre-Mageblood, pre-Ashes setup do prefer cast 1 damage taken. All right, Whirling Blades, I'm just using default, makes it faster. We don't care about any of the other ones. Tempest Shield, default is totally fine. You can use Divergent if you want to. I am overcapped on my spell damage block, so I actually get more value out of shocking more with Tempest Shield. Gives me a little bit more damage on my build, to the point, right, where with Ashes of the Stars, we have 50% chance to shock enemies, even not even counting crit from the Tempest Shield. And Tempest Shield starts to hit really, really hard, to the point where we get pretty decent shocks even on bosses. And then in the Pre-Mageblood, I was using faster attacks right here just to make the Whirling Blades a little bit more comfortable. All right, that's the complete Pre-Mageblood setup. Now let's swap over to the Post-Mageblood setup. The big difference here is we're going to be using a Vengeance setup instead of cast 1 damage taken. We are now relying on the Dying Sun for 2 of our projectiles, which allows us to swap out Volley, which then lets us put in Awakened Void Manipulation or anything else like that for some more damage. There were also a couple other swaps that I did, right? Like since the amulet changed, I did lose my Call, so I'm using Calling Strike here just to get my Call back. And I was previously using Onslaught on my boots, actually, on kill, and then I got an Onslaught on a hit ring, so we were able to swap that stuff out. The big change here is that we get some more mana reservation efficiency through both the Ashes of the Stars and the Essence mod on the body armor, which allows us, in conjunction with a second level 4 Enlighten. Yes, this is, it's a big ramping of the build. We have a second level 4 Enlighten, which allows us to use Zealotry here. And specifically, we want Anomalous Zealotry. Now, obviously, going to level 21 would be ideal, but level 20 is totally fine. We get +5 crit multi. Remember, all of these skill gems will get plus 30% quality because of ashes. So that 2% crit multi goes to 5% crit multi, which is just worth. So yeah, you want to get a second level 4 Enlighten, get Anomalous Zealotry here, and then I have that linked with Tempest Shield. And then with ashes and the body armor, we are able to reserve just enough mana to be comfortable here. All right, in addition to that, I was previously using cast on damage taken with my Molten Shell, and I previously had Precision just in a regular gem. Because we added 2 new gems here, Enlighten and Anomalous Zealotry, I had to drop a couple gems, and I actually added an unset ring just so I could sneak in everything that I wanted. So we lost faster attacks, and we lost cast on damage taken here. So just Whirling Blades, it's fast enough, right? It's not as fast as it was before. Would have been comfortable to keep that, but we did lose that. Defiance Banner here, Molten Shell, Flame Dash, nothing new here. Under the Sun, Anomalous Withering Step, as I said before. Regular Mark on hit, Anomalous Assassin's Mark. The big change here is we now are using Power Charge on crit. So we have Anomalous Assassin's Mark. We are getting our power charges from the 6 link, and we swap out to Cursed Enemies take 10% increased damage. That's a lot more damage. Very, very high value here. Divergent Purifying Flame as before. Awaken Cast on crit, linked to Anomalous Vengeance. So the way that Vengeance works is when you take a hit, you have a chance to do an AoE melee Counter-Strike style hit. Every time Forbidden Rite triggers, we actually count as taking a hit, even though we're taking no damage because of CI. So with Anomalous Vengeance, gives us 50% increased cooldown recovery rate. By default, it has a 1.2 second cooldown. This cooldown actually goes down to, I believe, around 0.7 seconds. Yep, 0.71 seconds, because we're stacking so much CDR all over our build, and we're using Anomalous Vengeance. We can very reliably have Vengeance proccing all of the time on this build. The key about Vengeance that I do want to make very clear here, and the reason why I don't use Onslaught, you might see some people on PoE Ninja using Onslaught here, is that the Vengeance AoE is going to be really tiny. It's going to be like this big, right? And you can see our Cyclone is this big. Well, there's a poor drawing, but... And then when Cyclone is hitting monsters, it's going to be flying out here, right? And if you're trying to get something like Onslaught to be very reliable, as you're mapping, especially killing white and blue monsters on the very first hit, Vengeance will just never hit a monster, right? If Vengeance doesn't hit a monster, it's not going to be able to call, it's not going to be able to crit and then trigger Purifying Flame. It'll be up once in a while when you're mapping, but I really like with something like Onslaught, I really want that 100% uptime. And that's why I have Onslaught on hit on my ring here. I'm not going for, the 100x power charge on crit ring. However, right, when we're fighting scary monsters, we can be within that range. Like, we're going to be like on the boss, kind of in full melee range. In that case, Anomalous Vengeance is always going to be hitting. It's going to be hitting very, very often, every 0.7 seconds, triggering, critting very often, Purifying Flame, and we get a really nice 10% call here. So that's the reason why I have that set up. Feel free to mix and match for the stuff that feels good for you, but this is just what I felt to be very comfortable. And then our other aura setup here, exactly the same, Enlighten with Purity of Ice, Determination, and Discipline. Ideally, Anomalous, level 2120, Vol Discipline, etc., etc. if you really want to min-max. Same thing with Determination, same thing with, 2120 Molten Shell. I hit good enough to the point where the build feels really, really good for me. You do not have to spend hundreds and hundreds and thousands of exalts to perfectly min-max. And then I saved the best for last here. I don't know why I did it backwards, actually. Very, very little change here, right? Cyclone with cast on crit. So with level 6 plus 3 because of the mastery, this will have 34% CDR plus the 20% here that puts us over 52. If this is level 5, that actually is 31, and we're missing 1%. So you can use an Abyss Jewel if you want to hit that instead, but you will be missing out on the quality of life having like a really solid regular jewel. I'm using Anomalous Forbidden Rite as before, but any of the other alternate qualities are just fine. And then the big swap out here is I replaced Volley with Power Charge on crit. The reason why I'm able to do that in Post-Mageblood is because I have really, really good Flash Sustain here, right, with my Flash Charge Precision mod, and I can basically always rely on very close to 100% Dying Sun uptime, even when I'm fighting bosses. So, because I can rely on that just always being there, always having the 5 proj on the primary target, we can drop Volley and put in Power Charge on crit, which also allows us to change Assassin's Mark to Anomalous for the increased damage taken. We don't care about Assassin's Mark anymore for power charge generation. And then power charge on crit is just a really, really nice more damage multiplier. 4 times 8 more damage right now. And then, if you want to min-max, you can go to 10 or even 11 power charges and turn that into a gigantic more multiplier. That was a lot. Hopefully that was enough detail, enough little tidbits and tips also peppered in there that might be helpful for people that aren't just interested in the gem stuff. The big thing that I would recommend, right, is just go to Path of Building, make sure you have your main damage selected here, make sure that your configuration is set up how you like, and then just click these drop downs, right? You do have to be careful. Don't be bamboozled, right, by the more projectiles, right? We know we're at that 5 projectile cap, but you can even do the drop downs on the alternate quality, right? And sometimes it'll tell you get some more damage. There might be something that I missed, or, there might be some options there that might be more quality of life for you and make the build play how you like to. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything else about this build you'd like me to talk about. Hopefully there's enough information out there right now that will answer enough questions and get you enjoying this build and having a good time. I'm going to go get ready for the stream, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.